Welcome, everyone, to your 2026 edition of the Weekly Enchant, powered by the Seek and Strike Network. Your go-to women's soccer across the land of enchantment. This is your look into the preseason for the University of New Mexico Lobos and the New Mexico State Aggies, both who've had an exhibition match this past Thursday. Joining me is my co-host, as always, Patrick Baca. Patrick, are you ready for another exciting season of college women's soccer, as we've established that?
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think we cleaned up, like, especially for us, right? On the reporting side of things, we cleaned up a lot of what we wanted to cover, and I thought last year was a lot of fun. So I think for us, we're gonna build upon that same structure, and these games are gonna be fun. There's been some changes, obviously, for conferences and whatnot that we'll get into, but it's soccer season again, so I think everybody's always excited for that.
Yeah, this just feels like a good refresh. As the months were nearing through the spring, I was like, here we go again, another exciting season of college women's soccer. We're gonna, I'm really looking forward to it. Like you said, there are a lot of changes. So that automatically makes it really interesting from the get-go. It just feels like this year's just been just epic for soccer, right? We had the World Cup. On one of my lists, I'd say like having Africa Cup of Nations earlier this year, and then of course now going on is Women's Africa Cup of Nations, so that's exciting. Did you watch any other soccer this year so far? Other tournaments and other leagues?
Well, we have USL going on too, so
Right.
we're obviously in tune to that. And so, the U20 World Cup is going on right now, or qualifiers for the U20 World Cup are going on right now. That's kind of it. I think the World Cup really brought out for a lot of people, and so I shockingly even watched an MLS game the other day. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah, so if I watched an MLS game, that fixing for a lot of people has been really exciting, and even like at the local level, it's been fun to hear. Like all the high schools around Las Cruces, and even for me in the Valley area and El Paso there's been a lot of it feels like a lot more support for a lot of these high school kids getting ready for their season to start. So I think that fever is carrying over a little bit too. So it's been nice.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a point there too, saying that fever is carrying over is, I'm sure everyone's anxious to get their season started, especially the ladies on these squads, right? They're just, you've been watching all the soccer and it's just been epic, and that's going to be my word of the day, epic. So, but you wonder if they're just like, all right, it's time to go again. Like I said, new eras. Everyone's looking to get on the pitch and kind of tell their story, right? Like, write a new chapter. I think those are all things. So, but without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start off the top with a preview into the University of New Mexico Lobos, and I'll be covering them this season a bit. Again, this is Chris Walker for that. Patrick Baca, again, my co-host, who will be talking New Mexico State Aggies. So off the top, Patrick, something new personnel-wise for the Lobos is that Heather Dyke, she resigned from her position as the head coach of the Lobos to become the new head coach of the U.S. Women's National Team U23 head coach. And this is obviously a great step from being the head coach for University of New Mexico. Heather very much loved the program and never, ever really wanted to leave that position. But, obviously coming into the opportunity to be the head coach of the U23 women's national team. You can't say no to that.
Yeah, it's she left like a really big legacy, I think, for like not just for the women's team for UNM, but like for the entire university as a whole. I feel like her name was uh pretty synonymous when it came to UNM. She was one of those names that you're gonna have to hang a banner for a really long time, and her accomplishments there at New Mexico. So, but it's also really cool because now we have like maybe kind of a connect to the women's national team.
Right. Yeah.
So, um, so
It
no,
might.
we're super happy for Heather. That's awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah, she ended up surpassing her 100 wins last season. She spent 11 seasons with the Lobos. So um, it's a good career note right there. That's a good way to kind of do it. And so for the Lobos, a new coach would be named, entering the Karley Nelson era. Head coach Karley Nelson served as the assistant and associate coach for Heather through 11 seasons. So I think this is a good way to continue the story as far as the university is concerned, to keep some continuity in terms of team culture and relationships with the program. And um, head coach Nelson brings with her, or adds to the program rather, Tom Hurdle. He's a low assistant coach. He's specifically focusing on recruiting, coordinating. Some of his notes from his profile is that he was a talent identify and he did talent identification at the U.S. soccer level. He's been doing that since 2019. Recently, he was the head men's and women's coach at Scottsdale Community College. They also have Paul Maestas, who is a assistant coach as well for the Lobos. Um, then we have Carmen Esnai, and she is the goalkeeper coach. She founded the Arizona Goalkeeper Performance Program out of Arizona. And more recently, she was the goalkeeper coach and assistant coach at Phoenix College. In Phoenix College, they had just recently won the NCAA Men's Soccer Championship for Division II, just last season in 2025. So you get a little bit of a personnel addition for UNM, and so you can't beat that. You know what I mean? Like that's like a new staff that's kind of coming in to the play here. And yeah, and then like circling back to Paul Maestas, like, he was hired as an assistant coach back in 2016 um, with the Lobos. So again, like, Karley has a little continuity on her staff with Paul, and of course with the newcomers, um, assistant coach Tom Hurdle and Carmen Esnai. So that is a little bit of the technical staff. Now, going into new program happenings, there wasn't really much yet that I can tell that's really happening. The only note that I made, Patrick, was that the University of New Mexico athletics are now going to be behind a wall, which is quite interesting, right? Like, I mean, it is still the Mountain West network that the games are being played on, but now it's called the Mountain West Plus, the new streaming home. This was announced on July 1st of this year. And I guess this might be a little shameless plug for them. I don't know. But they have a monthly package of $10.99 and an annual of $79.99. And with the annual package, it comes with a 15% off when you first sign up using the code WELCOME15. So there's a little bit of that. I guess you could kind of say, Patrick, that the University of New Mexico is you kind of see what's happening, right? Like they now have kind of a package plan to see sports. This obviously contributes wholly to their athletics program, and this is how things like the signings that are happening for the football team, basketball, probably will eventually trickle into women's soccer a lot more too. This is how the program gets its health, right? Is through things like streaming platforms being a place.
Yeah, I I don't know. I think I'm just getting fatigued from subscriptions for every little thing.
Honestly,
And so, I mean, I guess like the biggest question is how much revenue really goes to, because I guess NIL is also some of those things that
all
gets kind
right,
of
that's true.
thrown into this too. Is that I don't really know. I don't know the full rules for NIL about like who can and cannot sponsor, I guess. I
Hmm.
assume that the conference cannot sponsor specific players, but I also feel like I would like to. Well, I would like to see the where the money goes to as far as like the revenue share,
Right.
um, because you would think when you're looking at like the Mountain West now, like Miami's got it, or Wyoming. Sorry, I was looking at this other one. Wyoming, maybe UNLV, UNM, Nevada, maybe
Hmm.
Air Force, maybe UTEP, maybe are like your big hitters because Colorado College, I don't. You're probably not going to see a ton of the revenue share unless they divided it equally. But if you just think about like the teams that are now in the Mountain West, now that the revival of the Pac-12 kind of took some teams and
Yeah,
whatnot,
seriously.
um, it in retrospect to other sports, not just soccer, and this is the college part of this thing. This isn't as strong of a conference anymore, in my opinion. Um, with some of the teams that were added uh, for other sports. So it's definitely still a mid major, but I don't know if it's one of the stronger mid majors anymore.
Right.
So I guess we'll just see. We'll see how it looks for other sports. I know for soccer, it's definitely one of the higher end for mid majors. At least for women's soccer, Mountain West, one of those higher mid major team conferences. So it'll be interesting to see what the revenue split is and how they really convince these schools, other than how you convince the smaller schools, because you really have to convince the smaller schools that they have to put something in or get something out of this if they want the split into the streaming packages.
Right. Yeah. That's those are all good points that you're making. It would actually be interesting to get someone on the podcast that could really kind of speak to, okay, like what was the decision to go ahead and like kind of beef up the Mountain West streaming experience, because it's not like they haven't been showing it that way. They have been, but it's been more of a free for all. You just
Yeah,
go to the site and you could just watch whatever you want to watch, right? But now, because like you said, subscription models, and of course there's a number of conferences where you can't just watch things, like it becomes kind of a, hey, subscribe to this, subscribe to that. And for us, for you and I, in the world of wanting to cover five different universities, and they're playing preseason matches in other conferences, that would be a lot of subscribing to things. I mean, thankfully, you know like through the different universities that we cover, we've been blessed to be able to get digital media passes, so that has obviously lessened the blow for us to be over here subscribing to like a weekend pay-per-view or something of that nature. But I mean, I can obviously see that there's something that comes from it. So it would be cool to get someone on, probably from University of New Mexico, to really talk about that, to talk about, like I said, the decision to do this, and what they were looking at numbers wise, and kind of how this breaks down and how this benefits the program as a whole. Because you know, you know, more has to come from this, right? Like, you just take this, right? Like, and I don't know factually how this all plays out, but like, so the teams you want to watch, maybe let's just say maybe there's some programs within the University of New Mexico where it's not a sold out audience,
Right.
right? People are like, oh man, I'm really coming home to watch swimming or cross country, however you could watch that. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Right.
different things that are going on, and so now they have to subscribe to something, right? And so maybe the thought is, well, people aren't going to subscribe, so then they're going to buy tickets and actually be there in person, because now that's kind of a choice they have to make, right? That's kind of the cost of it all. It's like you could
Right.
either pay $10.99 a month or $79 for the year, or you can actually go to the games and be there in person. Obviously, players and teams, coaches, that they would love for you to be there in person, but hey, sometimes life happens and you need to sit at your laptop and watch the game, and
Right.
so and ultimately the other half of it is, for the students that are actually attending these universities, this is school pride. So you're not there, everyone's still it's still practical for everyone when it hits their pocket, no matter how much school pride you have. But
Right.
for us who are not going to these universities, who are watching this as fans and, and really enjoying it as another form of local soccer, again, we have to find our own values for it. Like if we weren't doing this, I mean, then yeah, I'm going to go ahead and probably throw down that 80 spot and go ahead and get this for the year if I'm watching more sports. Otherwise, probably just $50 for just the Lobos season for women's
Right.
soccer, right? But yeah, again, just it's an interesting move. It's not unheard of, um, and I'll just be interested to know like all of the decisions that led to this, and then probably more so maybe like a follow up on how it really benefited. Like, did they see like the grossing numbers that they wanted to see from it? Because I mean, now they have a metric in place. Now
Mhm.
they can really track it by something other than just like, oh, this is how many eyes were on the stream. Now they can say, well, this is how many subscriptions that we've got, and really, probably really play with the numbers. So yeah, that's kind of it for that. But I just thought that was kind of notable to mention for this year. So going on further into our preview, I wanted to jump into the preseason coaches poll. And last year we got a little bit of insight about this poll from Heather Dyke. She said that every coach has got to vote, and they can't vote for their own team. So we had more of an insight as to like where these singular votes might have been coming from.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's still quite the mystery on thinking about which coaches like pulled which teams the way they did. But I guess that's part of the mystery, and you might be able to figure it out over time. But Air Force sits at the top with 7 votes, for 7 first place votes. Wyoming is sitting at number 2 with 1 first place vote. New Mexico sitting in third with 2 first place votes. Grand Canyon, who was a newcomer to the conference last year, is sitting at fourth with 1 first place vote. And then from 5 down to 11, we've got Colorado College, Hawaii, which is a newcomer, UNLV, UC Davis, which is a newcomer, UTEP, which is a newcomer, Nevada, and then San Jose State at the very bottom. And there was something I was thinking about, Patrick, was San Jose State was really good last year. I remember when the Lobos played them, like that was a very tough game, and San Jose State was very. I remember them being very physical and kind of a tough to beat team. So, um, for what it's worth, these polls may not be as accurate as to the ability of the rosters, as we know that these polls have a lot to do with how teams finished last year. But in this instance, I'd have to put a giant asterisk next to this preseason coaches poll just for the teams that have left the conference. I mean, Boise State was your regular season champion, and then Utah State was your conference tournament champion. And so that right there, those 2 teams being gone, of course, Fresno State as well, but that really kind of shapes how this was going to be. And I think we lightly kind of talked about it in our offline on our text thread, which was that, with the majority of the really good teams leaving the conference, like how was this going to affect the conference? And you alluded to it moments ago when you said that this probably wasn't a very strong conference anymore, that it was probably, it may not be, it might not hold the same sort of legacy it's held in the previous seasons with so much talent leaving. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, no, it's just it'll be different, and I thought it was crazy when you brought up about uh, San Jose State being pretty tough. I had to go back and look at their schedule a little bit, and that they had finished it was 1-14 and 3,
Mm-hmm.
but the games were close. Like they weren't like they were ever. It just seemed like they were on the unfortunate end. Obviously, they their whole schedule's obviously stacked with California teams. That's just kind of what the Mountain West also became a part of, was a bunch of California teams too. But outside of teams like um, Air Force, Utah State, and Boise State, they're all pretty close games. You lose a close 1-2 to 3 to San Diego State. You have a rough. You pick up a draw against the Lobos. You had a tough outing against Grand Canyon. You draw against UNLV and Nevada. So, kind of interesting to see what that kind of holds for some of those teams. Do you kind of remember how they finished last year? Were they similar? Because I know that you brought up the polls changed, right? I'll get into
Mm-hmm.
the Aggies one later, obviously, but uh,
Yeah,
the
I can
Aggies
pull that up now.
the Aggies were, and while you're doing that, I'll kind of talk a little bit, because the Aggies were expected to finish fourth or third or something like that in Conference USA last year, and ended up finishing ninth, right? And so the preseason polls obviously have different outings. But what I
So,
noticed, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was going to say they might closely mirror what happened to last year without really looking into maybe some of the acquisitions that they had on the coaching staff for player wise, graduates, transfers, things like that. So I just
So
kind of
here,
interested to see how it finished last year.
yeah. So here's how it went. So conference and overall standings last year: Boise State finishing first with or going 8-0-2. Um, Air Force was second, going 6-2-2 in conference. Utah State third, 5-2-3. Colorado State 4-2-4. San Diego State 4-2-4. Before I continue, the loss of Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, San Diego State is a huge blow to the conference, because those are all teams that like definitely vied for for the chance to, they were all contenders. They were all tough Lobo opponents. Now going next, New Mexico at 4-2-4, so about mid table ish, right? And then Fresno State 4-4-2. They also left. Colorado College 2-3-5. Wyoming 2-4-4. Grand Canyon 3-5-2. UNLV 2-4-4. Nevada 1-8-1, and San Jose State 0-7-3. And that match with the Lobos was a 1-1 draw, but I remember it being a very tough physical match where San Jose State was just really all over the pitch. It was definitely, it was a surprise. I believe the Lobos, like I said, were able to come away obviously with a draw with that one, but for what San Jose State was doing in the season, it was kind of a surprise of just how they were playing that match. But so that's kind of how last year's poll shaped up. So when you're looking at this, you can really see, okay, well, Air Force was at the top, right? They were up there in the top three, so makes sense for them. But Wyoming being under the Lobos, finishing under the Lobos, but then getting votes to be like at the top, as number two, with Grand Canyon, who was a newcomer, also finishing down there, looking at like four. Like they really probably had a hard time really trying to kind of forecasts, and some of that probably, a lot of that actually, Patrick, probably has to do with the fact of the returners, of the programs, and how much um, what am I looking for? Attrition that a roster sees through graduating classes or transfers out. I'm sure you put the Lobos at 3 because they bring back a lot of their returners. So that's you have that sort of continuity you have to consider, and probably in some of the games that they really played, you probably have to also bounce the fact like that they have a new head coach, but was around the program as an assistant and associate coach for so long. So really not much is going to be missed from there, in a way, if you think about it, because we haven't talked to Karley Nelson to know how much of her own style is going to be injected into this first year, how much of it is like, hey, just kind of, game manager, just kind of run the play, right?
Right.
That's, because all the players know what's going on. So there is that familiarity of like, hey, we already know the style. So that plays a part. And then I think the other thing that the conference and the coaches had to really kind of lay down is we have 3 new teams joining the conference, like, and Hawaii sitting at 6. To be honest, like, I'm actually surprised that the 3 teams that are joining the conference are actually ranked that high, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of that has to do with how do they do in the other conference that they were in, which I remember looking at it in the past. I think they weren't too far off in theirs. I think they might have been like mid-table teams from where they came from. So I think that you had to consider kind of some of their body of work before they jumped into the conference. But, I mean, if I'm Nevada and San Jose State, I'm thinking, man, we got to get a win on any of those new squads. Like, that's got to be like definitely a target. And, obviously, definitely, what can we do against the top 5? But you just don't want to really finish down there, because that's, for the strength of the conference. So, but continuing on, the Lobos' 3 players to watch are Fiona Jenkins, rightfully so, Alyssa Welchel, and Nicole Anderson. And Fiona Jenkins, she had a great season last year. She was just 2A, just very, very strong on the defense. Was shut down corner as far as she was concerned, but then also was just very much a big factor on the attack. With the crosses into the box, scoring her own. I mean, more times than not, her name was mentioned, and if her name wasn't mentioned, she was out. But to kind of throw in a little WWE into this, I have to say, like, she was. Remember I was kind of saying she's like the Candyman. Say her name 3 times and she'll appear. Like,
Yeah.
I'd say she's like Joe Hendry of WWE. Like, say her name and she is there. And like literally, Fiona Jenkins is like, is that player that teams are gonna think about like marking her, because like, if she can get up, it's a thing, and if she is down there, then your star player is probably not getting any balls into the box. So definitely looking forward to having those 3 players on the pod this year. I think we definitely got to get them on and definitely profile them, and just kind of see how they liked their season last year, what they're looking forward to this year, and really just kind of just get to know them, just see what that's about. So moving on, Patrick, new roster additions for the Lobos, and I'll preface this by saying right now we're just kind of reading this off, but through the upcoming episodes we'll kind of look a little bit more into them and their contributions from what they did prior to, or maybe some of their notoriety coming into the school. But we'll try to profile these players, kind of produce some good content so you can get to know them and whatnot. So in the class of 2026, we've got Jessica Darby. What a cool last name. Defender from Toronto, Canada. We've got Kylie Mackey, midfielder from Las Vegas, Nevada. We've got Annalise Healy, midfielder / forward from Farmington, New Mexico. We've got Emery Villacorta, from midfielder from Puyallup, Washington. That was a hard one to say. I was thinking about that mentally. We've got Lycan Van Ruyen, midfielder from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. And then we've got I messed that up. And then we've got Angelina Moschetti, defender. She's a transfer from Baylor, Colorado. She did have minutes in this Texas Tech exhibition. And, I was looking her up on the internet because I was like, this name seems very familiar for some reason. And I don't know if I saw a Baylor or Colorado match, but I feel like I've seen that name for sure. So at the very least, she's got a name that, that stands out. And I'm sure there's probably more to come to that. So I'm sure in her playing style. And then we've got Madison London. She's a goalkeeper, transfer from Creighton. And then lastly, Allison Peralta. She's a defender and transfer from Arizona Western College. So not a lot of additions this year, and we were kind of joking a little bit off of before we started the podcast about what it looked like to see the roster ads. But look, like the Lobos have had instances where, I'll take that back. I don't think there's really been many instances where the Lobos have ever basically had 10, 15 plus players coming in as much, because I think they do a very good job balancing their roster. Every year, there's only a handful of ads that come in, and they cycle out. I mean, I think the most you really saw some sort of changeover was a couple seasons ago, maybe even last season, where no, a few seasons ago, where their whole back line was brand new. I think you could earmark that year with that dub that New Mexico State got on the Lobos up in Albuquerque. But for the most part, they do a good job of just cycling in and out their graduates.
Yeah, 4-1 was that score, by the way.
And the unnamed Copa that now has a name, right?
That does now have a name. You'll introduce it.
I will. So then I want to go into the 2026 schedule read, and again, we'll just be reading the schedule. I've highlighted a few that I'm looking forward to, and then we'll go into the conference schedule, and I probably will asterisk a few of those that I'm looking forward to as well. So without further ado, preseason for the Lobos, August 11th, they're playing at Fort Lewis. August 20th, they're playing here in Albuquerque versus Northern Arizona University. August 23rd, they're playing against Gonzaga. That's one that I'm looking forward to watching. August 30th, they're playing here at home against Cal State Northridge. September 3rd, they're playing at Colorado Buffaloes. That is one that I'm interested in watching. September 6th, they're playing at Northern Colorado. September 12th, they're playing at New Mexico State University in what we're calling, this is our first ever, and we got to find a spoil for this, Patrick. You got to come up with something. Maybe ask Irene. But we're gonna call this the La Copa Encantada.
Yeah, I like it.
For D1, this is the Enchanted Cup.
Yeah, I like that. It rolls off the tongue really well.
It really does, and actually, I'd be surprised if we say this enough, and then the universities are like, you know what?
Traveling Cup.
The Traveling Cup. Yeah. So there's that. September 17th versus Utah Tech. September 20th versus Idaho State. Now going into conference, September 24th, the Lobos are playing at home versus San Jose State. September 27th versus Nevada. October 3rd, they're playing at Grand Canyon University. October 7th, they're playing at Colorado College. October 11th, they're playing at home versus UC Davis. That's actually my sister's alma mater. That's actually interesting. October 15th, they're playing at Wyoming. October 18th, they're playing at home versus UNLV. That'll be a tough one. I'm actually looking forward to that one. October 24th, they're playing at UTEP. November 1st, they're playing at Hawaii. That would be a fun one, if you're a parent to go see your kid play, you're like, oh, we're going to Hawaii. It's just becomes a vacay. November 7th, you're playing. They're playing at home versus Air Force, and honestly, that one will be obviously one to watch too. Being your last home match of the season against a team that's preseason polled to be like number one, that finished in the top 3 last season, not bad. Like honestly, not bad. That's definitely a great way. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say that could theoretically be for the number 1 spot in the conference tournament. So
that very well could be. And normally that match has always been the San Diego State match,
right?
In the past. So then conference tournament. This one's interesting, Patrick. I think it's TBA. Usually the conference tournament is hosted by the regular season conference champion. So if you look at last season,
right,
Boise State won the regular season title. So this would be technically at Boise State, and then look, Utah State defeated Boise State in the conference tournament. So like I would imagine if Utah State hadn't left and they were still in the conference, that it would be at Utah State, probably as a close runner-up. But with neither of them in the conference, this one doesn't have a place. It's definitely neutral at best if they wanted to do that. But I bet that they decided this year. They're like, well, okay, you're not only are you playing for the regular season title this year, but you're playing to essentially extend your season at your house.
Yeah.
And I believe that's how they do it.
That'd be actually really interesting to sit there and say once you get to conference. I wonder if we'll get like a press release out of that sooner or later as the season obviously starts. This coming week they're full swing into their actual seasons. Just to sit there and say, you know what, the winner gets to host a tournament at home.
I mean,
goes, oh, okay, nice.
Of all the possibilities, right? If you think about how other things are done, because I mean, basketball is done differently, right? Like it's just in Vegas, right?
Right.
So I mean, they could do this a number of ways. Historically, it's been the regular season title winner. So to me, it's just TBA, and that's exciting because not only, like I said, are you playing for that spot, but you're also getting a chance to extend your homestand through the postseason.
As a sports enthusiast, I would hope that would be the case, but the pessimist in me thinks that they went to each team and decided we now have Mountain West Plus. Whoever has the higher share revenues, like I was mentioning earlier, whoever gets higher splits, you're probably your UNMs, your UNLVs, your Wyomings, and your Air Force. I would think those are your higher end of your year 4. Not to discount anybody else, but those are probably the ones that are getting a higher split. They're
Right.
probably picking one of those 4 and telling them, "Here, you're gonna get some extra money this year," and that's a pessimist in me.
Well, along the lines of what you were thinking, I was thinking you were going to take a different story arc, which was like, we're going to put this one in Vegas, and we're gonna be played at Cashman Field, or
that actually wouldn't shock me very much either. But then again, like that would still like that's part of your UNLVs, right? Like
it's part of your UNLVs, but I mean, like, just imagine, right? Like that's what you do. Or if the MLS got a Las Vegas team.
Yeah. I wonder. That's why I'm wondering if we're going to get a press release, because I feel like there's all these other things. Because when you said neutral site, I feel like that's probably what's going to end up happening.
Right.
Vegas wouldn't be a neutral site. Like you could theoretically take it off of.
If it's not at UNLV, if you put it like at Cashman,
then it's quote unquote
a neutral site.
But that's home field.
A partnership with Las Vegas Lights / USL and Mountain West, which I don't even know if they really could just pull that on the fly like that. But I think that, like if you do that at UNLV, then you got to cover up all that UNLV stuff and make it look like the Mountain West and kind of control that's like a whole nother thing, right? Because that release that you mentioned will actually be an interesting release to talk about, because
Yeah.
we're speculating it's just going to go to the regular season title, but the spin is that it could in fact be an opportunity with their Mountain West Plus, with that kickoff, with that they actually could control where it sits this particular year, asterisks, right? Like they
Right.
could do that and really play with the media aspect, and they might like it and go, yep, we're just gonna reclaim that. I hope they don't do that, because like again, like the sports enthusiast is like, you should get the chance to claim it when you run the regular, like that should be with you. And then if you win, you win that, boom, the next year it's automatically there too. So look at that. It's double,
That's what I
man.
was
Like
thinking. That's what I was just thinking is
you win this year, you host it this year and
and next year.
next year. Ah, I hope it's that way, but we'll have an emergency pot if it's not. So that kind of wraps up the University of New Mexico Lobos preview, just from the top, to give you something to kind of think about. Like I said, in the coming weeks, I will be talking more in depth on some of these things, like getting into the roster a bit more, as far as who returned, what they did last year, the players that came in this year. We'll have a better idea about them through some of the preseason games. We'll also look at where they came from and what they were kind of known for. Hopefully, we'll have some of them on the show. We can kind of get to know them. Obviously, the University of New Mexico has released some of like factoids about each of these new players, some of the things that they like. Those are interesting things. I'm sure we'll probably get into that a little bit more with the players, and like, hey, like tell us more about this or that. So I'm sure there's those conversations to come, and and a lot more. So definitely hold to that. But now we're going to switch over to the counterpart Division I school, the other New Mexico school in D1. But Patrick Baca is going to take it away, talking about New Mexico State.
Yeah, so for the New Mexico State Aggies, there's a few changes, and I think most of their changes are not so much on the personnel side. It's more on the athlete side. But for new personnel, D'Angelo Garcia departed as the goalkeeper coach from New Mexico State University. And he is now the head coach for the girls team at Las Cruces High School. So there's some fun news there for you. So interesting to see. And to come in as kind of a replacement, I hope I said her name right. I think it's Shauna Weldon as the assistant coach. She was previously at UTEP for the last 2 seasons. And then prior to UTEP, she was over at Washington State for about 3 seasons. And before that, she played at Washington State.
Wow.
And in that nice little press release that we got, in that nice little one, her boyfriend, I don't know if this is worth mentioning, but her boyfriend is the assistant coach for the baseball team at NMSU. So
okay.
What a lovely setup for her. She's already got the in, which is super awesome. So that's about all the technical staff that's been kind of changed around. As far as some new program happenings, this is more for the university than it is just the women's team. But
right.
Adidas is now the sponsor for athletic wear on campus again. We've moved away from Under Armour, so which is nice. Under Armour.
Yeah, what's your personal take?
Yeah, that was really expensive. Under Armour stuff was like really, really expensive.
Okay.
Granted, like there was Champion stuff and there was still Adidas stuff, but for me, I'm happy about it. I like Adidas stuff. It looks really great. A little cheaper on the cheaper end of things too.
Yeah. Runs smaller though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it runs a little small, but it's all right. Just get a little extra size larger. We're all good. So, yeah, that's for everybody. I really don't think that they cooked all that well on any uniforms for anybody. I think they're really generic, but Adidas has never been super crazy, I guess, with their kits or any uniforms for any team.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Except for World Cup ones, but those ones are obviously different. But
yeah, the funny thing about that I was going to say is it makes me think about an ad read that we had like several seasons ago We Are Seek and Strike podcast when we were doing that for United. We used to talk about tired of those cookie cutter templates. Remember that, Reed?
Yeah.
And it's like well, sad to say. I mean, it's templates. Like, it did spark my interest, but then I thought, yep, you're right about Adidas, because I mean, Nike would be the only sort of outfitter that I would think that would really get busy. I mean, if you think about Oregon and what they did with football, college football, like if that really could translate into the college game, which I don't see why it couldn't. I don't see why schools couldn't get real crazy on the fit. You know what I mean? I mean, like, look, like one more tidbit on the Lobos is like they had a lot of combos, like cherry and silver and cherry and turquoise and
the turquoise
cherry and just yellow, and I mean you could get real interesting. The outfitters, people putting those uniforms together. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, we digress. As far as last season went, I just kind of wanted to touch base in the standings. Kind of curious why, the same reason why I asked you about UNM, right? So Western Kentucky finished first in the overall standings. Liberty would go on to win the Conference USA tournament, but in the regular seasons, Western Kentucky would ultimately finish first. Liberty would finish second. Sam Houston would finish third. Middle Tennessee State University would finish fourth. FIU fifth. Delaware Law Tech at 6th and 7th. Missouri State and New Mexico State would finish 8th and 9th. And then Kennesaw State, UTEP, and Jack State would all round it out from 10 through 12. So the biggest changes, obviously, La Tech, Louisiana Tech would head to the Sun Belt this year. And then, as you mentioned earlier, UTEP is out into the Mountain West, which that's like a whole other episode that I have a rant for. But we'll see. Well, that one also we'll save that one in the chamber for later. But
I thought you guys were going to come too, man. Honestly,
I have a feeling that there are certain schools in the Mountain West that really don't want to share revenue with New Mexico State University. I will not name those teams or universities, but I'm sure that you could figure that one out.
Okay.
I'll kind of just leave that one there. Conspiracy theories and all, put your tinfoil hat on.
Spicy.
Yeah. For this season, preseason coaches poll based off of points. It's each vote is valued for a certain amount of points. I won't really read too much into the points because that just shows how they change things. And if there's really close ones, I'll kind of bring that one into the take. Liberty with 9 first place votes expected to finish first this season, with Missouri State and Delaware to finish second and third. Delaware received 1 first place vote, which was kind of interesting to me because Delaware finished 6th last year. So I guess the same kind of way that the Mountain West went, right? That was a strange one to see them get points. But the difference between Missouri State and Delaware was a single point. Yeah. So a lot of people put stock into both squads. So that'll be an interesting matchup to see throughout the season and how they match up against each other within their schedules, and then obviously on the field too, right? So that'll be a good one. Western Kentucky is selected to finish 4th, FIU at 5th, Middle Tennessee at 6th, Sam Houston at 7th, New Mexico State at 8th, and then to round it out with the last 2 teams, Kennesaw State and Jack State with 9th and 10th. The other disparity too, right? Western Kentucky and FIU separated by 3 points. And theirs, and then at the bottom of the table, Jack State and Kennesaw State only received 12 points and 13 points respectively, with Kennesaw State obviously edging out Jack State, but then 29 points to the Aggies at 8th place. So a 17-point difference between the two. So it doesn't feel like a lot of stock is being put into Kennesaw State and Jack State. They both did finish at the bottom of the table last year. So it was very interesting to see, because I think last year's preseason poll too, I'd have to do some digging on that one. I think Missouri State was selected to finish in the top 5 too. and then they ended up finishing 8th. So interesting to see them be put at 2nd, but it sounds like everybody is more than positive that Liberty will finish 1st in this preseason poll. So with the loss of UTEP and La Tech, kind of shrinks the conference down a little bit. It was pretty interesting to see how that one's going to really affect, because La Tech also hosted the Conference USA Championship last year. But because Western Kentucky, very similar to the Mountain West Conference Championship, will be hosted at the previous year winner. So Western Kentucky will probably be hosting that one this year, if not Liberty, because they won the conference championship in the conference tournament. So it'll be interesting to see.
I was actually just over here digging on the FIU roster a little bit, because I was like, didn't they have a? There were two. It was 2 seasons. Yeah, it was 2 seasons ago that I was actually looking for this player. But remember, Noemi Paquin?
Oh yeah.
She was a senior that season. She was a forward. She was just she was just crazy on the pitch. I remember her, and there was another player they had that was always like kind of feeding her the ball, but she was just lethal for them. I'm going to her bio because I remember we watched and we were just like, whoa, this one's like, she's just really crazy. Like, she started all 20 of those games. She had she had 1,615 total minutes. She scored 15 goals. She had all these accolades. Like, literally every year she just torched it. But I remember as a player, she was really, really good. But I was thinking like, maybe, obviously after she graduated, they just kind of weren't like maybe the same. But I just remember them being like really, really, really good. So I was just interested why they just didn't really kind of shift.
Well, and then the previous year, so that would have been 2024. They did really well. And I think in the 2025 preseason poll, I think Liberty was selected to finish first and then FIU to finish second.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Or vice versa. And then we had mentioned a lot of that roster came back and really couldn't fill in those voids. The point spread is really interesting to me between the top, like obviously like it's like Liberty, and then there's about like 3 feet before you get to second place. And I think that's kind of always been the case when it comes to women's soccer in Conference USA, because Liberty has just been pretty dominant, to say the least. And that has been one of New Mexico State's like struggles, that if you compare to UNM to San Diego State or even Utah State or Boise State kind of situation. Aggies got the best of them when they won the conference tournament a few years ago. That was probably like their best season that they had against Liberty, right? You had to beat them twice in a year and ended up doing so. So it's really interesting to see the disparity even between the middle to like the lower end of the table. So unlike the Lobos, who only had like a few roster changes, this is the conversation that me and Chris were both talking about earlier. The Aggies have essentially introduced a brand new full roster on top of theirs. But keep in mind that the Aggies did graduate 7 last year. So there was a lot of gaps to be filled. And at the end of Enchanted 11 last year, one of the things that we talked about is what are you going to have to do to go and fill out this Aggie rosters that is going to be missing a lot of pieces, especially like if you think of Valerie Guha, who is now playing it back in Germany with Salzburg for the
Red Bull, right?
For the Red Bulls Salzburg. I think that's their second season. It's either their second or third season as a women's team in like the women's Bundesliga. So how are you going to fill those shoes? And what is that kind of going to look like for going forward? So just a few that they add. Bella Morgus, senior transfer forward from South Nazarene. Gabby Hislop, a junior transfer for a midfielder from Tyler Junior College, who is originally from Kirikiri, New Zealand. I can't wait to get into her bio because her bio is so full of accolades.
Yeah.
And so that is one of those players for me. Gabby Hislop is going to be one of those ones that you got to put a circle around or highlight because she's going to be fun to watch just based off those accolades alone. Thyla Smith, midfielder freshman from Manchester, England. She originally played for Liverpool Women's FC, so that'll be an interesting ad. And disclaimer, I'm trying my hardest to pronounce all of your names, and I apologize now for butchering them into all hell. Felicia Dugard is a freshman midfielder from Denmark. Also played for a professional team out there, Lernmark Horsens. So another professional ad there. Zaya Gonzalez, freshman forward from San Antonio, Texas. Dulce Escorza, a freshman defender from El Paso, Texas. Eva Martin, a junior transfer, a midfielder from Georgia State. She was originally at Clayton State prior to that. Maria Sadisbal Riascos is a junior transfer from Cochise College, who just also was down here. Cochise College, at least, was just down here where they played their exhibition game against UTEP. So interesting little change there. Zoe Gist, a freshman forward from Tucson, Arizona. Riley Erickson, freshman defender, played her high school career at La Cueva in Albuquerque. And then Angeline Montoya, a freshman midfield forward, also played her high school soccer in Rio Rancho for Cleveland High School. So 2 New Mexico ads for the Aggies. Jordan Ruiz, a incoming freshman from San Marcos, California. And then to round out some transfers, Mika Graves, a junior transfer defender from South Carolina, Aiken. Juliana Negrete, junior transfer defender from Arizona Western College. Former teammate to Allison Peralta. That is now at UNM, right? And then finally, Amelia Campaign, a junior transfer from the University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley. So a boast of names being added in here. The cool thing is there's a lot of international transfers, and I think we kind of saw that. We saw that last year with the Aggies as they also imported a lot of – imported sounds wrong, but as they brought in a lot of players from outside of the country, right?
Right.
Yayu Wu being one of those, right? One of those transfers out into New Mexico. And the other one being that Juliana Negrete also played for it was oh shoot, I forgot the name of the club already. But she's transferred out of Mexico, already playing for the Mexican national squads out there. So some ads that were definitely there too, right? And so they're going to be interesting to see a lot of freshman ads and a lot of junior transfers that Coach Bartz and the rest of the company have brought in. Interesting to see. I really like seeing the 2 New Mexico players getting added to that one too. Both phenomenal players in the 5A level. So,
well, and I'd like to go back on that roster too. Like you said, a lot of freshman ads and a lot of transfers. I mean, I wonder the decision to do that. I would have to imagine it's how can we still get some depth in our roster with experienced players on a collegiate level, but also then the freshmen that you named that are coming in, like, I mean, they're not just coming from like remote places that don't have like some like soccer like legend, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's football there, right? But I mean, like, you got someone coming from Manchester, England, Liverpool, like that's pretty exciting. Denmark, that's very exciting. Like, like when you look at that, that's really exciting. I mean, and then of course to just take it up a notch, just locally, home soil or not home soil. It was like I guess you would say that. New Mexico. I mean, Riley from La Cueva and Angeline from Cleveland. I mean, both two high schools, up here that you know more often than not are usually in the conversation at the end of the year. So I mean, this the word we're looking for is pedigree probably, but there's a lot of pedigree in what is being brought into New Mexico State roster. But like I said, I venture to say I think like we know all schools will be transferring talent, but I mean it just we're at a place now where I think New Mexico State has done a lot in a short amount of years from when they left the last conference to this one, right? They just literally put themselves in a great position. I know last year the season didn't go as had hopes from previous years, but I mean, look, like the program has turned out professional players. It feels like in the time that we've covered New Mexico women's college or college women's soccer, however you want to say that, like in the time that we've been covering these programs through the Enchanted 11, I mean, we have gotten to see pro soccer players, more than schools have ever had. So, I mean, all my point is just that this may be something good for New Mexico State, and this may kind of change where they're sitting preseason, and where they finished last year.
Yeah, and you look at like a lot of the names that you had to try to replace, right? Like Ariana Lemons and
Oh yeah,
and obviously like a Valerie Guha. You have to replace Bianca Chacon.
2 seasons of Razul.
And then Janae Shackley, right? Amaya Smani Walters got in there really well. Meredith Scott ended up being one of our leading scorers, and so you had a lot of players. What it seems like too that they didn't have a ton transfer out either. That roster from last year was like heavier on the upperclassmen side. A lot of redshirted seniors, a lot of medically redshirted seniors, a lot of graduate students playing their 5th year of eligibility, right? A lot of 5th year or 4th or 5th year eligible players, right? And so there was a lot that you were going to have to replace, and that's something that like I mentioned earlier, that was a lot that you were going to have to replace. And then you still had a few players that were on that roster from last year that didn't see any action because they were injured. The name is escaping me right now. Oh man, the name is escaping me. The one that came to mind for the Aggies.
Like a Loma McNeese, was that what you were thinking? Or
yeah, but then and then you had like oh man, the name escaped me already. You said there's like 2 or 3 players already from the Aggies that were injured in the middle of the season or injured prior to the season starting that will get their 2nd year of eligibility or that next year of eligibility that are still on this roster.
Right.
So it made sense to where Coach Bartz is going with this team on the younger side. Okay. Younger with some transfers that have a lot of experience under their belt already. A lot of freshmen, a lot of incoming freshmen, and then transfers, right? You're a sophomore. You have a lot of sophomores that were already continuing, that were already on this team and or transferred in, or you have juniors, a lot of junior transfers. So if you're putting a lot of stock into this team, it's maybe for them to get a good giddy up for the season. I think that you see the 8th place in the preseason poll and go, we're probably a lot better than 8th place. and you hope to see that kind of be presented on the field. Obviously, when you bring in a bunch of new players, it feels like you're almost starting over again. It doesn't feel like a rebuild in the sense, and using that word, but it does feel like you have to start over with a lot of different players. And if you follow the Aggies on any social media, they've been getting after it since like early March. So that's a lot of time that a lot of these transfers or these incoming players are getting in for workouts and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I really do think that this roster is a lot better than 8th place. And then going into next year, you get a lot of those freshmen without discounting this season already for sure.
Yeah.
You have a lot of freshmen and a lot of and a decent amount of junior transfers. And I don't think there was a single sophomore transfer. A lot of those sophomores you already had within your program. So you're going to get a lot of players that are junior transfers that will probably stick around as seniors. You have a lot of sophomores that were already with the program as freshmen, and then you have a lot of freshmen that are going to stick around for their sophomore year. It's not a rebuild, but it's definitely building up for let's get some momentum this season and get after it next season 100% without obviously discounting the season.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of looking into the future of the hourglass, right? So, moving on to the schedule for the season. Just finished as we mentioned earlier, their exhibition match against Grand Canyon, Mountain West opponent Grand Canyon, where the Aggies won 2-1. Just going to throw that one out there against Grand Canyon. But they'll open up on Wednesday this week against Arizona State. It'll be the home opener. This will be the second year in a row that they play Arizona and Arizona State. Later on this week, they will, on August 15th, they will head over to Arizona before they are at Abilene Christian on August 20th. They'll return home for one game against Long Beach for their newly traditional purple out for T. So that'll be on August 23rd. And then they will be on the road for the next 3 games. First, they'll head out on August 27th, to the University of Southern California at USC Trojans for that one. And then they will also get to go on a trip to Hawaii, which will be fun.
Hey.
So the Aggies will head out to Hawaii, where they will play both Hawaii and Utah Valley out in Hawaii. Hawaii on September 3rd and Utah Valley on September 6th.
Seems like a little invitational, right?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of like a little
piecing together a little bit, probably.
Yeah, maybe trying to fix some travel costs in that one there.
Yeah.
I would assume that Utah Valley probably has Hawaii on that schedule and make that like a little 3-way game there you got going on. Just keep an eye out. I think that USC game is a game. Obviously, the Arizona and Arizona State games are big eye candies to look at. But last year, the Aggies opened up with USC last year. Opened up with Colorado College and Abilene Christian, right? But Arizona and USC, and then Colorado and Arizona State and Texas Tech was that stretch of games that they had last year that were big tests that we wanted to see from the Aggies from these Power 4 conferences. And the same thing kind of happens again. They go from Arizona State to Arizona and then playing USC when USC was ranked number 5 last year. Not on the poll this year, but should still be a strong team. And then that Utah Valley game is a circled one for me too. That's a good old whack rerun from back in the day between Utah Valley and NMSU, where those were the top 2 programs in the WAC when it still existed. So that should be a fun one to watch. Obviously, the newly named La Copa Encantada for against UNM on September 12th, where they're giving away a hat that says state on it, and they're also doing post-game autographs.
Oh,
just thought I'd throw that one out there for you. They will still get their rivalry matches, a fun one to keep both rivalry matches within the same week. So Saturday, September 12th against UNM, and then Thursday, September 17th, they'll be taking on UNM at the New Mexico State Soccer Complex. They're at home for those 4 games as they take on Northern Arizona on September 20th, and their conference opener at home is a green out. Don't know why it's a green out, but on September 27th, they'll take on FIU. Before they head on the road, they will take on Kennesaw State on October 1st. They'll be at home versus Liberty on October 4th. And then they will be on the road again against Sam Houston State on October 11th. They'll have their yearly pink out game against Missouri State at home on October 18th before they head on a 2-game road trip to close out the season. On October 22nd, they'll take on Middle Tennessee. And October 25th, they'll take on Western Kentucky. And then they'll close out the season at home on Halloween. I'm surprised that this doesn't have like a Halloween costume party tag to it or anything like that. On Halloween, October 31st, they will take on Jacksonville State to finish the season. A lot of good games. Another good schedule, I think, a good non-conference schedule from the Aggies. You put the Arizona State, ASU, Arizona, USC. You obviously have UNM and UTEP from the Mountain West out of conference ones in there. Those are really good. As far as the conference games goes, it's obviously the Liberty and Missouri State games for your home games that you have circled. And I think your Western Kentucky out in Kentucky is the one that's circled because those are the teams that you kind of have to shell out against. So the two at home against Liberty and Missouri State, obviously big ones if you could grab those results. The only interesting thing is that the callback that I made to the Aggies having won the conference against Liberty, that was the last time that Liberty had a home record that they snapped. That the Aggies had snapped, and then that returning season, the Aggies were on their longest win streak in program history when Liberty came in and snapped it at home. So, no records I think are in place right now, but there could be some undefeated conference records being snapped on that day, hopefully for the Aggies. So, it's a fun schedule to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for doing that. That definitely is going to be, like I said, there's, I guess the word of the day, epic, right? That's
epic.
It's going to be good. I think that's a lot of good information there, and we'll look forward to really unpacking it all in the coming weeks. And it's going to be exciting preseason for that matter. Just for those that are really looking for that sort of depth of information and really to kind of feel like they are the what would you call that? Like they're going to be, I guess, what do we always say? They're going to be a part of the conversation with us, right? Like continuing the discussion week to week. So a lot of fun, exciting things. Looking forward to some New Mexico State Aggie soccer as well as the La Copa Encantada, and and obviously we'll determine what that could look like, what that spoil will be. That'll be fun. But Patrick, this has been a great preview episode. As we come to a close, did we leave anything out that you wanted to mention?
Nope. I'm pretty happy with this one. It's always fun to cover these two D1 programs.
Nice. Well, we want.
Okay. Sorry. No, I didn't realize that my name was right there for that one. I was like, oh yeah, that's all you, Chris. And then I saw my name and I was like, oh, that's me. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Seek and Strike NM. We'll be continuing our Instagram posts for our moments of Enchant, kind of revitalize the way that we want to do that. So that should be fun as the games start coming out. We'll be posting on that one a lot. And then don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube as always to get all of the Seek and Strike content, youtube.com/@SeekandStrikeNM.
All right. To our Patreon members, thank you for watching the episode. If you don't follow our Patreon, this is a great call out to that. Definitely consider joining it. You could join it as a free member and get content. Or, if you wanted to toss me and Patrick a couple of ones so we can get some chips and cheese and, at these games, you might consider, naming your own nomination. That's cool. then that's great. Like I said, let us know your favorite part of this episode, comments on it, anything that you're looking forward to. Um, but we always want to say thank you for your continued support. It keeps us creating new content. This couldn't be more true. Is this our fifth season?
Something like that.
Fourth or fifth season? We have to go back and look, but we've been doing this thing for a minute, and it's been a lot of fun. So let us know what else you want to see, and what else you want to hear about. So those listening later at Apple and Spotify, again, please rate, comment on the episode, share it with your friends, so we can get the word out. We do have stickers. If you want stickers, write us, drop us a comment. We'll let you know how you can get some. Patrick, you have a stack down there still, right?
I do.
So Patrick's got a stack of stickers, so he might be bringing some of those when he goes out to an Aggie game. So, definitely there's that. Um, so if that's going to be it, and I think it is, for Patrick Baca, and I'm Chris Walker, and of course our producer Veronica Zavala. We'll see you next week on the weekly Enchants. Bye for now.